Prime Minister says the UK influx is harmful, and he says arrivals are going to be cut by 100,000. I don't think you believe that. I certainly don't believe it. Let's find out what Robert Jenrick thinks. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it. Very good morning to you, Robert. Thank you very much for joining us. Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick in College Green.
Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, very well indeed. Thanks very much for talking to us. Obviously, the top, we'll come to the immigration story in a moment, but the top story this morning: a 21-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of arson with intent to endanger life after that incident, more than one incident linked to Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer's homes, damaged in London over the last couple of days. I mean, obviously, the risks involved in being Prime Minister are many. Surely the government should be able to provide better security for the Prime Minister's home, even though he's not living in it, shouldn't they?
Yeah, I totally agree. Look, I'm pleased the police have taken action and appear to have arrested someone today, but it's not right that anyone in public life feels endangered, their home is in danger, and above all their family, because you can say what you like about us politicians, but our families shouldn't be on the line, and so it's incredibly important that we provide the right protections, because we don't want good people to be put off from going into politics because of this.
No, quite. Well, we'll come back to that perhaps later on. Let's talk about what Keir Starmer said yesterday. He got up around about 8:30 yesterday morning in Downing Street to make his pronouncement, which he said basically has led him to believe that immigration must be reduced significantly, in his words, which is pretty much against everything he's ever said about immigration, isn't it?
Well, it was an elaborate con trick. I watched the press conference in Number 10 and I didn't believe a word that Keir Starmer said, and I don't think most people watching it would have done either. It looked like a hostage situation where he was being forced to say something that his advisors had written but that he didn't believe a single word of. He's spent his entire life, his career, his circle of friends have all been built around a worldview which is of open borders. He's voted in Parliament against every single piece of border control legislation. He said that border control was essentially racist at one point. He wrote letters in which he tried to frustrate the removal of dangerous criminals from this country. He's even stood to be leader of the Labour Party on a platform of restoring freedom of movement with the EU and praising migration. This is a man who does not believe in the nation state. He doesn't believe in borders. He doesn't back British workers. You cannot believe a word that he's saying on this issue, and nothing that he said yesterday is going to make a difference. It's not going to stop the boats. It's not going to bring migration down to the levels that we used to enjoy before Tony Blair took us into this era of mass migration. It's not going to get the 1 million people in our country illegally out of the country, or the 12,000 foreign criminals out of our prisons and back home to where they came from. It's not going to make a difference. It's like going an inch when you need to run a mile.
Do you worry about a politician who changes his mind quite so readily as Keir Starmer? Because he's done it on a few things now, but this perhaps is the most obvious U-turn that he's ever made, which is clearly done because of the reform results from a week and a half or so ago. He now believes that he's going to somehow become more popular if he becomes effectively, in his own mind, more right-wing.
I think Keir Starmer's serially dishonest. We've seen time and again where he said one thing and done another. He lied over and over again at the general election, not least on taxes, only to hike them afterwards. And now he's pretending that he's something that he isn't. And the thing about immigration is that the public have seen politician after politician for 25 years saying that they're going to take action, only to do precisely the opposite, and they are sick of the lies. They want politicians who are actually going to get something done, and there's nothing that Keir Starmer said yesterday that's going to make a big difference to this issue. So he's just going to join that long line of politicians in the dustbin of history who've said one thing and done the opposite when it comes to immigration.
Should he face some kind of sanction, or should politicians generally face some kind of sanction for being this dishonest? I mean, you've called him serially dishonest. I mean, that's quite a charge against the Prime Minister of this country. Should he be allowed to do what he's doing and claim that he really believes something when he clearly doesn't?
Well, I think the public are not fools. They see through. I don't believe a single person watched that speech yesterday and believed that that was a heartfelt speech by Keir Starmer. It's one of the reasons why he's now immensely unpopular in the country because people know that he's lied. His record is already terrible. And on immigration, it speaks for itself. This is the worst ever year for small boat arrivals. The numbers are rising rapidly day after day after day, and he's not doing anything to tackle it. He's done a minor tweak to our human rights laws. He's not tackling the real heart of the issue, which is you've got to be detained upon arrival and removed from this country within hours and days, not weeks or months. And to make that happen, you've got to fundamentally change our human rights laws. We've said as a Conservative Party that means cutting out the Human Rights Act, so you end the merry-go-round of spurious appeals. And we're also looking at whether we should continue to be within the European Convention on Human Rights. You know my view on that. The party's considering its position as well, and I hope it comes to the most robust position as soon as possible.
Do you recognise his phrase, an island of strangers?
I think that there are already parts of our country where that is true. If you look at the centre of Bradford, for example, 50% of people weren't born in this country. If you look at the centre of Luton, more than half of people only arrived in the last 10 years. If you look at Dagenham, you've got the white British population halving over the course of the last 25 years. This has left people feeling very disorientated, that the places that they knew and loved no longer exist. And that has to change, because I want to live in a country which is not marked by extreme diversity, but by a sense of commonality, a sense of national togetherness, where we all believe in one country under one flag.
And also by extreme views and extreme terrorism in some cases. I mean, we've been asking the question since last week about the Iranian terror suspects who have been arrested for a plot to blow up the Israeli embassy, as far as we understand it. And we think that some of those Iranians may have come here on small boats. They may be asylum seekers. The government won't say. Similarly, we're told that there are 400 ISIS jihadis possibly returning to the UK without facing any kind of justice, presumably to wander free in their communities. This is unacceptable, isn't it?
Well, I've said for years now that the small boats crisis is a national security crisis, because you've got tens of thousands of young men coming into this country, almost entirely undocumented. Some of those people mean this country harm, and so we have to treat it with the seriousness that it warrants. And that is why you should be detaining and deporting people as a matter of course. And it's also linked, unfortunately, to a serious rise in crime. I've campaigned to have data in the public domain about the link between immigration and crime. That is now starting to happen. The Home Secretary has finally agreed to it. But I suspect that that will show that there is a serious link between particularly sexual crime and the numbers of people coming in on small boats, because some of these people are coming from countries where the attitudes are frankly alien to those that we have in our own country, particularly towards women, and that is driving crime. And our immigration system should put the interests of the British public first and foremost, in fact every single time, and it should certainly be geared towards protecting people. That's the most basic thing that it should be doing, not allowing people who come into this country to have extremist attitudes, terrorists, or people who might commit crime.
Yeah. And one final question, Robert. You were speaking in the Commons yesterday about Axel Rudikabana and his appalling crime, not just that he committed outside of prison, but the one that he committed inside prison, where he threw boiling water over a prison officer. You say the Justice Secretary must act now before an officer is killed.
I'm afraid there's a full-blown crisis now in our prisons, where in some of our supposedly highest security jails, very dangerous and sick individuals like Axel Rudikabana or Hashim Abedi, one of the terrorists behind the Manchester Arena bombing, are being given access to materials which they've used to attack prison officers. It's frankly beyond belief that men like that should have access to kettles which they can use to boil water and throw in the faces of prison officers. I couldn't care less whether Axel Rudikabana never has a hot drink again in his life. And I'm sure that's what most people in this country think. We should be putting the prison officers, who are brave people doing a tough job in difficult circumstances, first. And that means, if necessary, segregating these people, having them in rooms where they don't meet anyone else, where they don't have hot drinks, where they have no privileges. We cannot allow prison officers to be put in danger. And I'm afraid unless the government get a grip of this issue, yes, it is only a matter of time before a prison officer gets killed.
Robert Jenrick, thank you very much indeed, MP and Shadow Justice Secretary, of course, speaking to us from College Green in Westminster.